Hello, 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 everybody. Period 9, Friday. We are going to be talking about something called the Green Revolution. You have looked at, and we have done together, the different types of agriculture. We did that on Wednesday. So you have that lecture up on the classroom if you need it. Now, I was using Google Hangouts last time. I didn't like the way it went, so I'm doing YouTube Live. This is what I've been doing with all my other classes too. So I'm going to stick with this because it just works better. The way that we do this is you don't sit here and stare at me. I don't even look at my screen. I don't even look at my video. The only thing I'm looking at is the comments on the right side if anybody joins and has any comments. What I do is I have the slides up, and I'm going to go through the slides like I did the other day. I'm going to break down some of the slides for you. I'm going to talk to you about what the Green Revolution was, and then give you a little heads up as to what you'll be doing as the assignment. So what you should have up, you should have already looked at it in the classroom. I posted the work this morning. So the first 30 minutes of this section, you should have looked through the material. You should have looked at the slides, looked through them, looked at the articles towards the end, which we'll look at together as well. So I'm going to get right into it so we can just wrap this up. So now you are not staring at me talking, you are looking at the slides. And when you open up the slideshow, we are on lesson 3, which is what impact did the Green Revolution have, right? So now that would be slide 1. We are moving through this. We are going past slide 2 because that's just the agenda for the day. We're going past slide 3 and 4 because that's a review that you can do on your own. And then we get to slide 5. So when we're looking at slide 5, we see the objective. The objective is to explain the significance of the Green Revolution to land and water use. All right. So slide number 6 is a deleted slide that I did not delete. I forgot to delete it, so we can just totally disregard that. So we start on slide 7. Slide 7, what impact did the Green Revolution have? Okay. So the Green Revolution. Let's think before, because this says during the 1960s. Let's think before the 60s. Let's think about agriculture before. So we had these types of agriculture like monoculture and polyculture, right, which we talked about last time. And farmers were finding ways to really, during that time, save as much of the dirt as possible, right? Because what monoculture was doing was not only the whole biodiversity thing where it was dangerous to grow just one type of crop, because if your crop got destroyed by pest or disease, your whole crop was gone, right? So that's why they moved to polyculture, and they would plant multiple crops in the same area, right? But the second problem they faced, or challenge that they faced, was always the fact that they had to move their farm, their crops around, right? They did this crop rotation, they did shifting, they did a bunch of different things. And that was because when you're growing something on the same plot of land for a long time, you use up the nutrients in the soil. And then eventually the corn that you're growing gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And then eventually you use up all the nutrients in the soil and the corn won't grow at all. So that was a problem, right? So they sort of mitigated that problem, figured it out by shifting their crops around, by mixing up polyculture, by mixing up different crops, right? One year grow corn, the next year grow soybeans in that area. And you remember that from the last set of slides that we worked on. So now the 60s come, right? So they did is we're always doing as best as we can, right? And then when technology increases, we try to increase our efficiency and everything else, right? So during the 60s, farmers started to figure out how to make or breed new varieties of wheat and rice, okay? Grains, right? Grains are wheat and rice. They made these hybrid varieties, and they ended up having very high yields, which means they made a lot of food per year. And they also noticed that these hybrid varieties were also more repellent or resistant to diseases, right? So during the 60s, they start growing this food, and they start doing it in a little bit of different way, which will explain what it is. And they realized that they were making a lot more food. And for instance, it says India experienced double the rice production in just, a few short years, a handful of years. Mexico experiences an eightfold increase in wheat production, right? So this is happening all over. It's not just in the United States. So this is what they refer to as, and on slide 8, actually, let's look at slide 8. So what impact did the Green Revolution have? And again, we haven't defined the Green Revolution yet, but we will in a second. So the world grain production, when you look at this chart, you see 1960 to 2000, the world grain production increased by 200% in that amount of time. That's a huge amount of food, right? So some of the naysayers may say, oh, wait, well, that must be because more and more people were farming. Not true at all, because when you look at the other line, the green line on the chart, you'll see that this all took place without increasing the area of farmland used. So that means we weren't making more and more farms. We weren't allocating more and more land to grow things. We were growing things on the same amount of land, the same acreage throughout the world, but we were just being really efficient at it, and we were being really good at it, and we were growing a lot more food in the same area, which is pretty cool, right? That is what you refer to, slide 9. That is what's referred to as the Green Revolution. Okay. So when we think about Green Revolution, when we think about green now, we think about, oh, going green and you're recycling and you're being good to the environment and Earth Day. That's not what the Green Revolution is. This is way before all that. This is before how we look at the word green when we're talking about the environment. The Green Revolution, I look at it like the Industrial Revolution. I'm not a big history guy, but in the industrial, we've had industrial revolutions in the United States. And the Industrial Revolution was all about finding new ways to be more productive, right? And to get goods out to people. So railroads, right? Railroads connected more places, and assembly lines. Ford makes this assembly line. And now all of a sudden you can produce more goods faster, and you can get them further because of the railroads, right? So this made industry explode, and a lot more people can get a lot more goods at a lot cheaper price. That was the Industrial Revolution. The Green Revolution is very similar, because up until the 60s, we could grow food and we did a good job at it and all this other stuff. But during this Green Revolution, that's when we figured out new ways, when we made the agriculture industry a little bit more advanced, more technical, and we were able to produce a whole lot more food. So that means we can get a whole lot more food out to people. We could sell it at cheaper prices because there's more of it. So the Industrial Revolution was similar to the Green Revolution in that way. That's the analogy I use. Okay. So don't start thinking Green Revolution, yay, save the planet. That's not this. We'll get to that, but that's not this. So I'm moving to slide 10. So we talked about how we were growing all this food on the same amount of land, which was pretty cool. Now, this chart talks about, okay, well, some naysayers may be like, no, the only reason we had so much more food during that time is because people weren't eating as much or whatever. Again, this chart proves that idea wrong too. This graph shows you on the green line how much grains, wheat and rice, people eat on average per year. All right. You can see over the 40 years or 50 years that this graph spans that didn't change much. I mean, that changed a little bit, but it didn't change that much. The blue line you see is the food production, right? So all of a sudden you see all these grains rising up 200%, but we're not eating any more and we're not eating any less. We're eating the same per person, right? As far as it goes. Now we're eating a little bit more because the world in that 50 years population grew a little bit. So a little more grain is being used, but nothing huge when you look at that graph. So again, it's just proving that farmers have been innovative and efficient and found new ways to grow higher yields, better food, right? We're going to get to how they did that. So just relax on that. That's slide 10. Now we're moving to slide 11. So what impact did the Green Revolution have? Well, the production increased dramatically for grains, and the grain per person only slightly increased. That's what the last graph said on the other slide, right? Now, this other part, the second part of this slide, is that the other methods of increasing food production have been used, and new crop variants have a higher yield. You can make more, but often require higher water and nutrients, right? And then it states that these are now at their limits. What does that mean? Well, the way we're going to learn how they did this on the next slide, the way that farmers increased during this Green Revolution, increased the yields of food, the way that they did this required a little more water and it required more nutrients, phosphorus, nitrogen, fertilizers, right? So that was a little bit different. They got to where they could get to. They did the best that they can. All right. So they are now at their limits. And what that means is on slide 12, and this is where it all comes together. How did they actually do this? What the heck was the Green Revolution, right? We know it was this huge increase in food over 40 years, but how the heck did it happen? This is how it happened. The Green Revolution was achieved by natural plant breeding coupled with fertilizers and irrigation. All right. What that means is it was selective breeding. It was the farmers started to breed the better plants. Up until, before the 60s, they would take their wheat and they would take their rice and they would gather all the seeds from their crops and they would replant them the next year. Right? And that's what they would do. And they would do that over and over. And that makes sense, right? Plant the seeds, get the plants. But farmers and worldwide, farmers started saying, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grow the wheat. I'm going to grow the rice. I'm going to see which is the strongest wheat, which wheat is the best, which wheat survives diseases better and resists pests, which wheat grows further into the season, which wheat plants are the best, are the strongest. And what they did was they identify these strongest plants and they take just those seeds from those plants and they replant them the next year. And when we're talking about DNA, when we're talking about inside of a seed, just because all wheat is the same species on a farm, say in a crop, doesn't mean that the DNA is the same, right? So what that means is, look at humans. We are all human, but our DNA is all rearranged in different ways. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us tall. That's what makes us short, whatever. Same with plants. So inside the DNA, inside the seeds and the DNA of these stronger plants, that DNA is a stronger version of the wheat, right? So let's get rid of the smaller plants and let's selectively, naturally plant breed. Let's breed the stronger plants instead of breeding all of them. So eventually what happens is you have a whole field full of plants that are genetically related because they kept breeding the strong ones. So over time, 60s, 70s, 80s, like you see that chart going sky high, you see that everybody in the world caught on to this idea and said, all right, let's do it. So that's the way they did it. Okay. So that was the Green Revolution. That's how they accomplished the Green Revolution. But as you see on this slide 12, where we're still on in the middle here, it says, but the plants are now at their limits genetically. What that means is they've done everything they can do, right? The farmers have done everything they can do. They have bred the strongest seeds of wheat and the strongest seeds of rice and all these grains, and they have gone as far as they can go. They have made the most genetically superior plant that there is. Naturally is the word, right? Because you may be thinking something else right now, or may have thought something else in the last few minutes. But this last sentence on the slide 12 says, today, another route is being pursued, which is a little more controversial. So this may be where your mind has gone over the last 10 minutes or so. When you go to slide 13, it's the guided practice. You have an activity to do, but it says the Green Revolution's impact and GMO's potential impact, right? So GMOs, genetically modified organisms, right? So farmers and agriculture went as far as they can go naturally. They bred the best seeds and they did the best they can, right? And now science comes in and science says, you know what? We can go into the DNA of those seeds. We can manipulate the DNA. We can get these plants to grow faster, to grow bigger, to grow more often, to resist pests, and we can chemically enhance this DNA, GMOs, so they can break the natural ceiling and make even more food, right? And more nutritious food and food that lasts longer and all these other qualities that they can chemically enhance using genetically modified organisms, using chemistry, using science, right? So there is a lot of controversy to that, as I'm sure you know. My kid just photobombed us. Hi. It's okay. You can say hi anytime you want. So the GMO thing, a lot of controversy. Some people are saying, look, it makes more food. It makes, we broke the ceiling and we can feed more people. And this is a wonderful thing. And there's other people like, whoa. We don't know what this does to us. We don't know what these chemicals, this chemically enhanced food will do to us. It can cause all kinds of issues. We haven't done it long enough where we know. So there's a debate. There's a huge debate. And I think a lot of you already know that. Just through class, I remember a lot of people saying, okay, yeah, well, GMOs, this and that, it's one of those things that are stuck in people's heads now. When we talk about organic food and then people always throw that out. Kids are always throwing that out in class. So probably in your head, So that's where we go to. The analogy that I've been using, a couple of people asked yesterday, they weren't really like the difference. What are we getting at here? And the difference, the big thing I want you guys to understand through this is that the green revolution is different from the GM. We can almost call it a GMO revolution or science revolution, right? The green revolution was all natural, was a natural breeding. Okay, there was no science. There was no manipulation involved except for choosing the right seeds and this and that. All right. It was a natural progression. And then there was the ceiling that broke it, which was GMOs. So the way I look at this and the way I explained it yesterday, and I think it kind of makes sense, so I'll stick with it. I had a friend in high school who loved to lift weights. Loved lifting weights. He was obsessed with lifting weights, like a lot of people are. And, he wanted to get big, he wanted to get ripped, blah, blah. He's 18. He wants to look good. So he's lifting and lifting and lifting, and he starts, gaining a lot of weight. He's eating, he's doing everything he should be doing, and he gets really jacked, looks really good. He did all that naturally. He wanted to be a bodybuilder. He wanted to be one of those big, huge guys you see on stage doing the bodybuilding. He got to a point naturally, and your body just doesn't do that naturally. So what he did, and I'm not endorsing this at all, and it was, in hindsight, he said it was a bad idea, but he chemically broke that ceiling. He took steroids and he went from natural and he broke that ceiling and continued to lift and gain more muscle mass. So yes, the results were there, but what was the impact of that, right? And I won't get into that, but that's the analogy I use when we're talking about the green revolution and GMOs. The green revolution was the natural, was my friend lift until he gets as big as he can, right? And then GMOs come in and break that ceiling and make and have better results. But the impact, you just don't know what the impact is going to be on humans, right? So that's where I go with that. When you go over to the next slide, you go to slide 14. This is the important slide. This is where at the bottom in the speaker notes, in the speaker notes, there are 3 links. Those 3 links will take you to 3 articles. The 3 articles have to do with Green Revolution and GMOs specifically. What you are doing with these 3 articles, and I'm just going to leave it like that. I don't have any written work for you to do today. And we will meet again on, not till Wednesday as I'm looking at my schedule. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to read these articles. I want you to become really, really an expert in GMOs. And what you're going to do the next time we meet is I will have a writing assignment for you that will be due that day and graded and all that stuff. It's going to be, I guess you can call it a persuasive essay. You are going to be writing. You're going to take a stance. You're going to read all this, get all this information. I want you to read the pros, the cons, the ups, the downs, and I want you to come to a conclusion yourself, how you feel about it. And you are going to spend some time the next time we are scheduled to write an essay that is going to say why you believe you're a yes or a no for GMO. You're going to provide much evidence for why you chose the way you did. And you're also going to refute the other way. So say, well, the reason why I don't believe in GMOs is this, and this. So you got to have both sides of the story so you can really write a good essay. All right. That is what your job is. That is what you should be doing over your time here. All right. So that's all I have to say with the slides. That's all I really got. So I'm going to go. You can look at this later. This will be on the classroom. You can click on this and watch it again if you have to. Hopefully I broke down the slides in a decent way. Do not forget that, and text your friends that may not be on right now, but don't forget at 11 o'clock today, the superintendent is having a WebEx meeting for all the seniors in the district. So you are seniors. You have to log on to that. The link is on my classroom. I think you all got emailed or reminded, and I think all teachers reminded you. It was really important that you check in on this meeting with Superintendent Leone at 11 o'clock, because he's going to tell you probably answer a lot of the questions you might have in your head. It's only for seniors, so it must have to do with all the things that seniors do this year, like graduate and prom and all that other stuff. So I'm going to log in for a little while. I'm going to log in at 11 o'clock and listen to see what he has to say. I'm also, I have a meeting at 11:30, so I have to leave. I can only be there for a half hour. But if anyone wants to fill me in on the classroom and let me know what's going on, that would be great. But anyway, I'm out. Thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you all later. Stay safe, stay calm, stay smart and strong. I keep saying strong and smart together. Smart and strong. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.